Surprise, surprise. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the first Chaos and Creation in Kit's Backyard of 2023. Surprise, surprise. I wasn't planning on doing this today, but it is such a nice day here in the Chicago burbs that I decided to just hop on and do this. Um, and hope you're doing well and having a nice day. It is just gorgeous here. It's about 85 degrees here in the burbs, and it's been a long, long wait to have this fabulous weather. And so I decided to just hop on and have a chat, say hi to everybody. And I actually do have a few things to talk about. So hi, Tony, and to just say hello. We don't have flowers planted yet or anything, so I'm not going to be doing a tour of the yard yet or anything. But hopefully by next month, when I'll be doing one of these and it will be more planned, I'll be able to show that off. So, hi, Beetle Eddie. Hi, John. Yes, I am definitely refreshed. And first of all, I want to thank all of you who were so kind when I was going through the COVID madness of last month and all the kind wishes you gave. My dad's doing much better. He's still recuperating a bit, but he's definitely in a much better place than he was. I still have a residual cough myself. In fact, if I mute once in a while, I still have a cough that's hanging on. But other than that, doing much better. And my mother is a tiger. She's 88 and had the lightest case of all of us. I mean, she is an absolute tiger. And so it was really crazy, but we're all doing much better, getting back to full steam. So I just wanted to thank you all for your kind thoughts and prayers. And COVID sucks. We all know. But secondly, since we haven't really. Thank you, Astro Zombie. Yeah, we love this yard. The people who own this house and who actually built our house in the 30s were horticulturalists, and so they designed this yard. We can't take any credit for it. We love it. Um, and secondly, because I really haven't had a chance to talk about it, thank you to all of you who were at the New York Fest and came to our Talk More Talk panel. We really had a blast doing that. And thank you so much to all who attended in person, all who came by my table to say hi. It was a blast. It was such a fun fest. So thank you to all who did that. And just really was a fun fest. Just great to see everybody. Hi, Farrell. Yeah, that's Miss Odell. um, and so it was just such a fun time to see everybody and catch up. So yes, Farrell, indeed, finally nice out. So I had to take the opportunity to hop out and relax and say hi. And I'll be officially starting these next month, but I just had to take the opportunity to hop on and say hello. Um, so I wanted to say talk about a few things. First of all, I wanted to take advantage of a challenge that's going around. I'm sure you all know Steve Schnee, great guy. He does the ski lodge broadcast every Tuesday on YouTube. And if you're not familiar with it, tune in. It's a great show. He plays mainly 60s and early to mid 70s pop. And he does kind of a listening party on YouTube every Tuesday night. And he is just a music encyclopedia. And he has a challenge, and you guys should play along. And if you have a channel yourself. Well, and actually, you don't have to have a channel. You can post it on your own Facebook page. But he's doing a challenge called the Holy Trinity. And what that is he's asking people to name an artist and to name 3 albums that that artist did, and I think it's supposed to be 3 in a row that they did. That if you were recommending this artist to someone who has never heard them before, what albums out of this person's catalog would you recommend? And I think these are supposed to be 3 albums that they did in a row. And so that's why he's calling it the Holy Trinity. And so I wanted to throw my hat into the ring here and name this, and I'm going to tag him in this video afterwards so that he knows I participated in the challenge. So I'm going to name, of course, I think this will come as no surprise to anyone, Stevie Wonder. And I'm going to name, boy, this is tough, but I think I would recommend to someone who has never, heard him before, Inner Visions from 73, Fulfillingness's First Finale from 74, and Songs in the Key of Life from 76. I mean, that is a 1-2-3 punch if I've ever heard it. I mean, those are the 3. Talking Book is, of course, wonderful. But, I mean, Songs in the Key of Life, of course, I have to get that in there. So I think those are the 3 that I would recommend to somebody who, to get the essence of Stevie Wonder. And so those are my 3 picks for the Holy Trinity Challenge. So that's the thing. So if you guys want to play along, you can, of course, make your own video and tag him in it. I think you can also post on his Facebook page. So it's any artist, and it's the 3 albums in a row that you would call the Holy Trinity of the artist. So absolutely Beatle Eddie, Rubber Soul, Revolver, Sgt. Pepper. Yeah, what's that artist again? I don't know. I can't think of it either. So yeah, it's kind of a fun challenge. So that's my entry. So that's the first one wanted to share. So thank you, John. Yeah, Stevie, as you guys know, Stevie Wonder, other than the Beatles, is like, that's my guy. He is the artist that, as I've said, Songs in the Key of Life was the first non-Kitty album I ever owned. And so, that he was the one who made me love music. So, good choices, Tony. Vertical Man, Ringo Rama, and Choose Love. Yep. So yes, and yes, I do, and I am indeed familiar with that artist. So yeah, it's a fun challenge. If you guys are familiar with Matthew Street, I know many of you are. He did a great video for this challenge. He did a bunch of artists. So if you go over to his channel, check out his entry for this. So he did a ton. I mean, of all different genres. So do check that out. Okay, so the other thing I wanted to share with you guys, this is kind of late breaking news, is if you are familiar with Tuesday Night Record Club, which is through Monmouth University, Ken Womack, who we all know and love. Of course, we're all super excited about his Mal Evans book coming out in November. He does this monthly thing. It's it's absolutely free. You can either attend in person if you're lucky enough to live near Monmouth, or you can attend via Zoom. And it's, as he puts it, it's like book club, but with records. And he features a different album every month. And there's a presentation, and you can join in the discussion. So I'm going to be doing 2 in a row. I'm going to be co-hosting them. So June 6th, I'm going to be discussing the Cars debut album with them. So that's going to be a lot of fun. What a record that is, right? One of the best debut albums ever. I mean, you know, isn't a bad track on that. And we have a special surprise plan that's pretty funny. So to go along with it. So hi, Penny Lane. Hi, good to see you. And so I'm going to be doing that. And then in July, I think that's July 11th. Let me double check. Yes, July 11th. I'm going to be doing a record that's I know a little something about Thriller. I'm going to be discussing that, and I know a little something about Thriller, so it's going to be a lot of fun. So you're going to get me two months in a row, and I'm really looking forward to it. So I'll be posting all this stuff on um, my Facebook page and the Talk More Talk page. So it's absolutely free to sign up for. So hope to see you guys there. It'll be a ton of fun, and I might be doing that from my backyard too. Who knows? So we'll see. Oh yeah, John. Oh, good choices. Steely Dan. Yeah, Steely Dan. Katie lied. Royal Scam Asia. Absolutely. Um, I grew up on Steely Dan because yeah, my dad loved them, and so yeah, I know he had at least Katie Lied on 8 track. I remember hearing that, and I've seen them live once in the '90s, and they were fantastic. I've just love them. In Asia, that is just a perfect album. So very good. Um, but hi Laura, good to see you. So yep. So I hope to see you there for those two albums. That's going to be a lot of fun. So there's that. Um, so as I said, that's late breaking news. Just found out like last night that I'm going to be talking. I knew I was going to be talking about Thriller, but didn't know I was going to be talking about the Cars too. But that's going to be. I mean, that's a group from my youth. So that's going to be a lot of fun. We'll be teaching a course again this fall. Um, Finalizing the details on that, so I'm not going to share what it's going to be about yet, but I think you're going to like it. So I will share those details when I have them. Let's see. As great as Aja is, I laughed my head off. Robert held up the cover and shouted, "Man, this is horrible." Oh man. Oh, that's funny. Great album though, but yeah, maybe not the best cover. You might be right about that. Can't buy a I mean, all their albums are incredible. I mean, they're all good. So, yep, you have to hear his delivery. Yeah, I should do the breaking news banner to Tony. You're right. Yeah, I'm not as familiar with StreamYard, but I do it when I'm doing one of these because with Zoom, you can't see the comments in the right in the program. When we're doing Talk More Talk, I have to have Zoom in one window and YouTube in the other to see the comments. It's really annoying. So when I do these, I use StreamYard so I can read the comments in real time. So I'm, not quite as familiar with it. I'll have to study up more on it. The other thing, of course, that the news that came out this week, not about me, is Rock and Roll Hall of Fame nominations came out, um, and I'm kind of fascinated that one of the nominees that hasn't been mentioned a lot, or inductees, I should say, that hasn't been mentioned a lot is the Spinners. I'm so happy that the Spinners got in. Um, I taught a course a couple of years ago on Philadelphia Soul, and while they were not from Philadelphia, they were certainly part of that sound. And I am thrilled that they got in. They are just a classic group. I mean, they didn't cut a bad song, so I'm just ecstatic that they're in. And Willie Nelson, that's one of those, he just got in. I mean, why wasn't he inducted years ago? I mean, I'm just astounded that he just got in. Um, so that's I mean, that's kind of a shocker that just one of those ones that I just thought, what? As always, of course, this is completely subjective. And you know, what does it mean anyway? But it's very weird, the nomination process. But um, yeah, Alan Parsons Project, I would definitely. I think there are so many deserving people that still need to be nominated. That's for sure. But yeah, I don't know how it took this long to get Willie Nelson in there. I mean, that's insane. Um, but I think who else was in there? Shaka Khan. Now she's a Chicagoan, so I'm happy she's in there. And I mean, what a voice she has. So I'm fine, and she kind of crosses genres. Trying to think who else was inducted this year. Um, well, here's the thing. Yeah, John was just asking, are they rock and roll? I just finished teaching a 4-part course on the roots of rock and roll, and one of the reasons I taught it is because I was asking the question, what is rock and roll? And this whole debate about the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame inspired me to teach it, because that is the question that keeps coming up. Is this rock and roll? Spinners rock and roll. Is this rock and roll? And the thing is that there are so many genres that went into the development of rock and roll. And that's why I taught that course, because there's gospel, there's country, um, the course I just finished teaching, was about the international roots of rock and roll. I taught about uh, the Cuban roots, the Mexican roots, um, the African roots. There are so many different genres that go into it. So, like the Spinners, for example, some of their roots are, more than some, are gospel. And so, to me, I don't really get hung up on the notion of, when you're inducting, different artists into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, what is rock and what isn't, and because there are so many different genres that go into it. Bluegrass. There are elements of bluegrass. There are elements of so many different kinds of music. This 4-part course I taught, it was just fascinating to me as I went into the research for this series, just how many, jazz, so many different genres go into rock and roll, that, to me, it doesn't really bother me to have, you know, other genres in there, because there are so many. Um, and you mentioned top 40. Um, again, it doesn't really, I mean, what does top 40 mean? I mean, it to me, it's really, um, again, this is just such a melting pot of different things, and different genres, and all. And I mean, what is your definition of top 40 exactly? It's such a wide range of sounds, because there are some rock songs and rock artists that were in the top 40. Um, I just think it's such a wide range of sounds, and that's, as I said, with this course I taught, that's what I was trying to show, and that's what I love about rock, by the way, that it is such a melting pot of sounds. And so, um, That's my soapbox. Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm sure you're sorry you asked, John, but that's my melting that's my soapbox that of what a melting pot rock is, and that's what I love about it. In this course. Yeah, yeah, exactly, John. There are a lot of genres because exactly as you point out, the blues. Um, if there were no blues, no rock. Period. Absolutely. Um, Yeah, exactly, Farrell. Yeah, top 40 used to be all different kinds of sounds. You bet. Yeah, it wasn't fragmented. You're absolutely right. Leif. Yeah, I mean, but again, rock and roll is so many different things. What rock and roll became. I mean, the story of how it became rock and roll is a long, long story. As I said, it took me 4 courses to tell the story, and I just scratched the surface. And it's a fascinating story with so many different people involved. I mean, like Sister Rosetta Tharpe, for example, which that's another one that she took way too long to be inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. I forget when it was when she was finally inducted posthumously, of course. Um, I want to say like 2018, something like that, which was pathetic because I mean, and here she was a gospel artist, and she of course had that wonderful gospel voice, yet she was steeped in the blues, um, and she could play rock guitar. She had so many different influences. If you haven't heard her music, go on YouTube and check it out. You will be shocked, at how far ahead of her time she was. So there are these figures that were crucial to the development of rock that are you know, just fascinating stories, and of course way before her as well. Um, and and as I said, took far too long to induct her. Um, but yeah, it's just I love teaching this course because in fact, one of my students joked because one of the uh, I'm trying to remember which part it was, but I even went back to medieval times. It was to just tell this one part of the story, but I mean it's a lesson in history. One of the courses I taught, parts of this was about influences on the Beatles, and I talked about British Music Hall, which of course goes back to the 19th century. Oh, that's where I talked about medieval times, because some elements of music hall go back to that. That's where I brought it up. Um, and I also talked about reggae, and I talked about that kind of thing. I mean, there are just so many elements that go into development of rock, and of course the Beatles, as you all know, were sponges. I mean, they absorbed so many different kinds of music into rock and roll, and of course Indian music. We all know that, and so many, and yeah, reggae, absolutely. Well, and they actually, I'm giving you a little preview of my classes here. They got into an earlier form of reggae called blue beat, and that part in "I Call Your Name," the part in um, even my name, look up the number, the longer version. That was an earlier form called Blue Beat, and it was called that because there were these records that came out in Britain that were Jamaican exports, and they were on a label called Blue Beat Records, and so the music became known as Blue Beat, and they were basically ska, but not the ska of the late 70s in England that was fast. Um, and it was the slower kind of version, and My Boy Lollipop was the biggest hit from this era. I'm sure you've all heard that. That's basically Blue Beat. And so the Beatles liked this, and so they tried their hand at it. Um, and right, John, absolutely. Um, you know, Frank Zappa used classical avant-garde. Yeah, you bet. It is flexible. So that's why I don't really get that hung up with different artists that get in like the Spinners and all, and saying, are they really rock and roll? Well, I mean, they do have, though, the elements that made rock and roll, like soul, like gospel, that kind of thing. So absolutely. Hi, Susan, good to see you. Oh, really? So Stella was speaking at the coronation concert. Cool. Yeah. Hi, Indie Cult. Good to see you. That's awesome. Yeah, I just saw that Stella has come out with a new beauty line. Um, I might check out, although it's probably horrendously expensive. But we'll see. But yeah, she is really successful. Just amazing. She's always expanding her brand. But although she's coming out with more, I remember she came out with some T-shirts I think a few years ago, and I thought, oh, I might look into those, and they were like $1,000 or something. I'm like, no, maybe not. So yeah, I don't think so. But yeah, I think it came up in my Facebook feed something that she had a beauty line out, like some moisturizer and things like that. So we'll see. But but anyway, so cool. Yeah, I forgot that the coronation concert was today. Yeah, the only people I know who are playing that are Katy Perry, Lionel Richie, and Take That. I think was the other artist. Yeah, they had a hard time getting people. Yeah, Paul McCartney wasn't interested apparently in playing, which is rather interesting. Um, so interesting. Oh, it's airing live now. Okay. We spoke about saving the planet. Yep, no surprise there, of course. So I don't know. Yeah, it's interesting that this isn't exactly a star packed show. Well, I guess Take That is a big Well, I was going to say boy band. I guess they're not exactly boys anymore. They're kind of a you know bit of an oldies act, probably a bit more now, but interesting. Also, Lionel Richie's already been on. Okay, so Katy Perry's yet to come. Interesting. Okay. Wow. All right. Well, I'll have to catch the replay later. I just haven't, to be honest, been really into the coronation stuff. I mean, I've seen some of the highlights, but no. Hi, Mark. Good to see you. I was just talking about my classes. Mark is a star student in my class. Um, let's see. So yeah, I agree, Mark. There are a lot of different artists that deserve to get in that still haven't. I completely agree. There are a lot. Um, yeah, and yes, James, absolutely. It's a shame. Oh, you did hear the class recap. Cool. Yeah, it's a shame that that Lionel Richie's vocals are fading. I actually saw him. It was kind of weird. In the I think it was early 2000s, he was opening for Tina Turner, which is rather odd. But he was, and his vocals were still pretty good then. But and of course Tina was fabulous. I mean, she was, and it was sort of toward the end, before she retired. But but yeah, I mean, but he was, as I said, he was still. I think his voice was still in decent shape then. But yeah, it was kind of odd that he was opening for her. But oh, Tina was just she was Tina Turner. She was one of those artists that I'm so glad I got to see. I mean, before she retired from the stage, because she was just incredible. I really. Oh, really? So he did sound different. Yeah, I saw. I think I saw a clip from American Idol, and he was singing a little bit. I think one of the contestants was singing one of his songs or something, and he was kind of singing along. And yeah, it didn't sound that great. I think he was singing all night long or something. And yeah, I agree. His voice didn't sound that deep. Um, oh yeah, I've heard of that movie. Um, Mark, that Studio 666. Oh really? But so Lionel Richie makes a cameo in it? I've got to see that. Is that on is that on streaming? As I've been meaning to see that. Let's see. Would I say that George was the most R&B inclined of the Beatles? That's an interesting question because he definitely had an R&B bent, but Paul could do it too. Because he like Arrow Through Me definitely had an R&B kind of feel to it, and of course when he and Stevie Wonder did "What's That You're Doing" and Say," oh man, that's a tough call because George definitely had that R&B feel, which I always loved. I wish he'd done more of that. But Paul could do it too. Um, and I always wish Paul would do that more often. Um, so I'd say maybe George, but well, and that's a good point, Mark. That John could have, he could too. Let's see. Oh, so you don't know if it's streaming? Okay. Hmm. Yeah, I'll have to see. I'll have to check that out. Yeah, because John could be R&B too. Yeah, you're right. Um, yeah, I mean, even with things like beef jerky and stuff like that, I mean, he definitely had, and in the Rock and Roll Covers album, and certainly in the Beatles, he would, cover, he would do like Larry Williams and Arthur Alexander and people like that. I mean, he definitely had a love of R&B, no doubt about it. Oh man, see, Indy, I thought I had the answer, and boy, it's that you asked a complicated question because all three of them actually had R&B leanings. Oh, tough answer. Ah, I'm gonna have to think. This could be a good talk more talk topic. Actually, to run that by the guys because yeah, that's an interesting question. And so, oh, James, you saw. Sorry, I missed that. You saw Elton John 3 weeks ago and sounded great. That's good. Oh, okay. So it is streaming, but for a price. Okay. All right. So $3.99 is not too bad. Yeah, Drive My Car has a bit of an R&B feel. That's true. There are a number of Beatles songs that have an R&B feel to it. I mean, not just the covers, but well, and of course, a lot of Paul's bass lines, and James Jamerson was one of his heroes, so that makes sense. Um, and which one was it? I'm blanking out. Oh, Got to Get You in My Life. I mean, that was a Motown ode. So yeah, there are a number of songs that have an R&B flair to it. So, and people wonder why I have such a love of R&B, and I kind of grew up with listening to a lot of it because it was really my dad. He is a huge fan of James Brown. I mean, huge James Brown fan. So I grew up with a lot of that. And we used to watch. I mean, I like Saturdays. We always watch Soul Train which was, in my opinion, far better than American Bandstand. I loved Soul Train. And there was a great radio station here in Chicago that I would listen to, WJPC, that played a lot of great R&B. Yeah, and there's a great R&B tradition here. Um, so I just kind of grew up. Oh, and I also remember Dad's 8 track of the Average White Band, and so he just had, and he's the one who gave me Songs in the Key of Life. He's a big Stevie Wonder fan, and I mean, he likes all different kinds of music, but R&B was a particular favorite of his. So I just grew up with this stuff, and I love it. So that's how I got into it, and love it to this day. So. Um, let's see. Yeah. Oh, I'll have to check. Also, there's a YouTube channel about George's Jukebox. I'll have to check that out. Yeah, I'm not surprised. He had a lot of R&B records. Very true. Um, Paul seems quiet on the touring front. Has he decided to stop? Don't know. That's a very good question. I'm not sure. Um, I mean, it's anybody's guess at this point. I mean, his voice is what it is, but he loves touring, and we all know that. I mean, he's never going to do, and he hasn't long time. He's never going to do those huge, world tours again. I mean, he can't. But I don't know. As I said, I think it's anybody's guess. I think he loves touring. He loves performing, but I mean, he is 80, going to be 81, and I just don't know. Um, yeah. Oh, David Ruffin is, yeah, it's a shame he was so self-destructive, but incredible singer. I agree. Absolutely, amazing. Let's see. Um, oh yeah, I saw that idea you gave. Yeah, Northern Soul is. I agree. That is a fascinating topic. Yes, I'm working on ideas. I just had a conversation with Ken about that, Mark. So working on some ideas. Obviously I can't do them all, but I'm working on it. So I've got a bunch of ideas. So if I don't get to that one, don't worry. It's in the list. Let's see. Yeah. Yes, James, I saw that. That Roger Daltrey saying that. Yeah, touring is very risky because of COVID and the cost of canceling shows is expensive. I did see that. And I mean, he does have a point. I mean, I'm sure it is, and shows do have to be canceled periodically because COVID's still with us and it's going to be with us. So that's it's a point. Um, so it's yeah, I don't know. And I mean, and Paul's not getting any younger. I mean, we have to face it. I mean, it's true. I mean, the concert I saw last year was fantastic. I mean, it really was. But you have to have a lot of stamina for those shows. And I guess the question is, does he still feel he has the stamina to do those, almost 3 or whatever 2.5 hour shows or whatever? Heck, I don't know if I'd have the stamina. I mean, I really admire him for doing those. Let's see, another Talk More Talk idea. Would the Beatles have stayed together if Brian had lived? Yeah, it's an interesting question because definitely his death was a factor in them breaking up. I mean, John talked about that I think he even said like the Beatles. I think he said something like the Beatles died when Brian died, something like that. So it's a very interesting question. Yeah, it's true, Mark. It's I went to that Paul concert because it was outside. And so I felt a little safer going to that. Um, and yeah, it's it is a risk going to shows. First of all, inside, as I discovered going to the fest, if you're going somewhere and it's inside and there's a lot of people, you're taking a risk. But also the other risk is might be, the concert could be postponed. That's very true. Yeah, and outdoor gigs don't have the best sound. That's very true. Um, and Hi, Ricardo. Yeah, very good. I see what you did there. Very good. Yeah, I mean, David, it's true. I mean, he's 80. I mean, it's um, he can't get around it. And he's, I mean, he's not in the best voice to say the least. And oh, that reminds me. This was the other thing I wanted to mention. Um, this AI stuff that's been popping up online. Um, I actually talked about it a little bit. I guested on Ed Shen's when they was Fab. He did a little segment on it on his show, and Martin Quibell and I guested a little bit for a little time on it. We were actually recording the next episode of Toppermost to the Poppermost, which, by the way, if you haven't checked that out, please do. I have links posted on my page, and I think Talk More Talk. If I haven't, I'll post it for the latest episode. I'll do that. But anyway, we did a segment while we were recording the next month's episode. We did a little recorded a segment for Ed's show. Um, I am really not in favor of this AI stuff. I mean, I just find it incredibly creepy. Call me an old fogey. Um, I just don't like it. Um, I just think it's really, um, you know, I I really think it's just going a little too far. I mean, some people are saying, oh, you can go back now and you can tinker with Paul's new songs and but replace his old voice, old sounding voice with the young Paul voice. And I mean, it's like tinkering with history or something. I just don't like it. Um, I just think that's going too far. And how does Paul feel about this? I mean, if I were Paul, I would not like it. Very good, Indie Cult. That's exactly how I feel the hologram thing. I that's exactly how I feel. I mean, I remember hearing some years ago, and I don't think it's yeah, and right, Farrell, it is ageist. I remember years ago hearing that Whitney Houston's estate was going to uh, do like a hologram tour, with her image. And I just thought, oh, come on, you know, I mean, just imagining the audience, watching this and applauding her, you're applauding nothing, it's completely fake. I didn't have as much of a problem I remember years ago there was a thing where Elvis's original touring band played against, live against a screen of Elvis. Um, they had him, a footage of him performing, but they removed the background music and it was just him singing. I don't know if I'd personally go to that, but at least you had partially live music with his touring band. That doesn't bother me quite as much as the hologram thing. But Yeah, I think the AI stuff is sort of in that same category. I don't like it. And yes, I agree, John. It lacks soul and originality. Um, and I mean, you can definitely hear the robotic sound part of it. Ugh, I don't like it. Um, yeah, I agree, David. I mean, like, yeah, on that tour, it was a nice tribute to have John on the screen and all. I mean, as long as it's like a one-off thing, but I just yeah, I think it's weird. I completely agree. Um, oh, really? So Carl Palmer is going to play with footage of the late Keith Emerson and Greg Lake, along with two other musicians. Yeah, I don't know. So, so Farrell, yeah, AI music is disgusting. One newish band that doesn't need it is Rebel Kicks. I'm not familiar with them. Hmm. So, oh, Susan, no, I'm sorry, I missed your comment. I think it's creepy. Yeah. So good. I'm not good. I'm glad I'm not alone in that because one person that I mentioned this to called me a luddite, meaning that I'm against technology. I'm most certainly not against technology, but I just think this is going too far. Yeah. Oh, okay. So they did a cover of "Please Please Me." It's on YouTube. Okay, I'll have to check that out. Yeah, I'm not familiar with them. Um, but I just yeah I don't like this at all. Well, and then somebody brought up, well, they can use AI to, maybe even, enhance the sound of the Hamburg tapes and all that. Look, I know the Hamburg tapes have crappy sound. We all know that. But you're tinkering with history. I mean, you can't change history. I just think that to me that's absolutely, trying to change history. I don't like that at all. Um, Let's see. Oh wow. Okay, one of the rebel kicks looks like John at the Cavern. They're fantastic. Okay, so let's see. Sorry, I'm catching up on a couple of comments here. Um, oh wow. Okay, so biography of the late Jim Gordon uh, will be out. Interesting. All right. My wife and I were watching Help this morning. May I ask your favorite Beatles film? Please don't say Broad Street. Don't worry, I won't. There's no danger of that. Um, oh, favorite Beatles film? I guess probably A Hard Day's Night. But I like I don't like Help quite as well, but I do like I like parts of it. But I guess I'd have to go with A Hard Day's Night. I mean, it's just a classic. There's such great scenes in there. George, I think maybe my favorite in that film, though. I mean, that there's some great scenes with him. Let's see, Peter Jackson. Yeah, yeah, I know. Um, yes, I did see They Shall Not Grow Old, and he did do amazing things with it. I know, but um, did I buy the original Capitol? Oh yeah, absolutely. I Those were all that were available. I became a fan in the '80s, so yeah, the Capitol albums were all that were available. Now the technically my first album was the 20 greatest hits album. That was my very first, the pre one. And I still thought that was a solid collection. I think the Fab Four Free for All did an episode where they compared the different collections, and as I said, I thought that was a solid collection. Um, but I'm trying to remember what my first like real album was. I mean, it was definitely Capitol, but I can't remember what the first like quotes real Beatles album was that I got. Um, I want to say A Hard Day's Night, but I'm not 100% sure. Let's see. Yeah, interesting. That yeah, probably yeah, I definitely quote lines from Help. Go to the window. What do I think of Ray Davies as a lyricist? I have to admit, I'm not as big of a Kinks fan. I like some of their stuff. I'm not really like hardcore Kinks. But I like some of their stuff. I mean, certainly a good lyricist. But I can't say I'm a huge fan. So I don't know if I could say I think he's like an incredible lyricist, but he's good. What do I think of the Ruddles? Hilarious, absolutely hilarious, very clever. I'm not talking about like the Kinks, not a hardcore Ruddles fan. Like I don't have like all the albums and but I mean that film they did and the songs, I mean hilarious, really incredible. Rich and George, though this is my backyard. My parents in my backyard. Yeah, really, we love it out here. What looks like a K-Tel record? I missed that. So okay, so yours, Mark, was so your first was the Meet the Beatles album. That's very cool. Yep, once you buy one, you can't stop. Oh, Corvettes. I never went to one, but I know of that. Yeah, those are gone, I believe. Do I think John would be on Twitter 24/7 and he lived? Probably. I think he would have embraced uh, technology. As I think he'd be fascinated by it. Has Ken got contrarian's disease, having flowers in the dirt and pressed to play on his top two albums? No, I think he's sincere. Oh no, I think he's very sincere. He he's he sincerely loves, and it's interesting how times change. I used to love flowers in the dirt, and and I still have sentimental feelings for it because that was the album that he toured behind. It was my first ever time seeing Paul, so I still have sentimental feelings toward that album. But as time has gone on, I don't like it quite as much as I used to. I don't know if it's aged as well. I still like it, but I wouldn't rate it as highly as I did in the past. Press to play, I still defend. I'm not saying it's his best ever, but I think the album's gotten a bad rap. There's some good tracks on there. Oh yeah, ABBA does the live concerts with just a live band. And hi, Patrick Sweden. I don't think I said hello to you before. Um, those techniques, yeah, they do. I don't know if I would see a concert like that. To be honest with you, I mean, I understand. I guess they feel that they don't want to do full concerts. They feel they're too maybe too old. I don't know, but I don't know. Yeah, that is cool, Mark. They still have the 64 pressing. Oh, nice. I'll have to check out those. Let's see. No, Rich. I'm in Illinois. Wish I were in California. Let's see. So okay, so John, the first Help was your first record. Very nice. Sorry, still catching up. Still catching up on all your great comments here. Um, Let's see. Because I didn't know about most of their intermediate catalog until 1968 when I got the Hunter Davies biography in paperback. I was a sheltered child. Oh, thank you, Farrell. Yes, Press to Play. I think again, I'm not saying it's his best album, but I think there's some great tracks on there. I think it gets a bad rap. Hi, Red Light Flash. If I've written a book about a band, what's the best way to try to get it published? There are a couple ways you can go. You can, of course, try to approach, um, different publishers. I would probably go with smaller publishers. The other way, of course, is self-publishing, and I've done both. My Beatles book is self-published. The Michael Jackson book is through a publisher, and um, and it's really not that expensive to self-publish. Um, and in terms of marketing, it really doesn't matter because for promoting it, unless you're Stephen King, the publisher is not going to spend any money on marketing your book. So you're still going to have to go out and market it yourself. So in that sense, it doesn't really matter. Um, but it kind of depends. If you're writing a Beatles book, you may be better off self-publishing because there are a lot of Beatle books out there. Let's face it. So you may have a harder time getting a publisher interested in a Beatles book. But if it's another band that may not have as many books written on it, you may have a better chance of getting um, a publisher interested. Yeah, Flowers is kind of uneven. Of course the Elvis Costello stuff I like. Um, yeah, I like McCartney 3. There are some very interesting moments on there. It's very experimental. Some of it's very experimental. Deep Deep Feeling. That is a I like that track. Let's see. I have a 1993 tour shirt of Paul and wear it proudly. Oh, and you weren't alive then. Oh, you're a baby. And I was so mad at Paul because he skipped Chicago on that tour. So didn't see him on that. Yes, yeah, first 5 tracks are good on Press to Play. That's right. Talk More Talk is a great song. Yeah, I'm Driving Rain is my least favorite Paul album. I do not like that album at all. And as you guys know or watch Talk More Talk, we did another listen on that and didn't change my mind, sad to say. Let's see. First album I bought in '64 was Introducing the Beatles. First single I bought was She Loves You. Still have both. Very cool. Wow, that's great. Mr. Mayo tried to shame me into it over the comments, but I just can't. Oh man. Sorry, B was flying over here. Um, yeah, yep. Let's see. Favorite Stones album. I'm not as into the Stones, but probably Let It Bleed, I guess would be my favorite. What is the furthest you've traveled to see any ex Beatle in concert? Oh man, probably last year when I saw Paul in Orlando. So I know that's not very exciting, but I would love to travel to see Paul do, to do Mall of Kintyre, either in Canada or um, England. That's like would be my dream. And Not yet. Yep. Nope. It is no. Nope. Not Northern California. Still believe Mal is the most underrated member of the Beatles family. Well, we'll finally get to hear his story, thankfully, in November. It'll be fascinating. Next and maybe last Paul album be called. I don't know. Yeah, I hear that he is working supposedly on another album. So we shall see. Yeah, I agree, James. I mean the songs just yeah they're kind of boring and he needed a producer on that album to like he did on Chaos and Creation, which is why it's such a great album, to tell him when songs are not up to scratch. And he didn't. I mean, and notice he never worked with the producer from Chaos and Creation again. He needs somebody to tell him when a song is not up to scratch or needs more work. And I know Paul is not really a fan of that, but he needs it. Let's see. How do I listen to music? It's a bit of everything. I listen sometimes CD, sometimes vinyl playlists. I used to listen on my iPod a lot. I don't listen as much anymore, but sometimes on my laptop. I do that a little bit more these days because I'm also putting together presentations for classes and stuff like that. So I've been loading a lot more of my music onto my laptop. So I do that. Um, I listen to on streaming, Spotify, um, Apple Music, mainly those two. Um, but yeah, so kind of a bit of everything. Let's see. Yeah, yeah, Mark. I don't think Girls' School will. Yeah, I don't think he'll play that anymore. I agree. Yeah, I think that's probably not going to be on the set list. Yeah, yeah, Rich. I think Let It Bleed. Absolutely. Oh, so that's cool. Yeah, you still have an original, Mark original. She loves you. Very cool. But yeah, I really wish Paul would get with a producer who would, really have the guts to, tell him what songs need work, what songs need to go, and what songs need trimming. That's another thing, because he's certainly notorious for, songs going on too long. Um, he needs that as well. Let's see. Wow, James, you've seen Paul 13 times. You've seen him in Italy and Portugal. That's very cool. Good for you. That is really very cool. Yeah, I wish he'd play No More Lonely Nights. I would, although I don't know if his voice could hit those notes in its current state. But yeah, I wish he'd done that. I love that song. Let's see. Would I agree Paul is one of the most versatile bass players ever? Bass line just so bad gets me every time. Great bass line. Yeah, I think he's one of the best. He really some of his. But I love his bass on "Good Night Tonight." That's another one. that stands out for me as well. Definitely a versatile bassist. See, me, it's interesting to see which Beatles songs are popular on Spotify. Um, because yeah, Beautiful Boy. Wow. So Beautiful Boy is 94 million. Take It Away 2 million. Yeah, I did a chapter for the book that I collaborated with Ken Womack. Um, uh, and I did kind of a rough survey about songs that were the most popular for streaming, and yeah, the numbers have changed since I last did that chapter. It was a few years ago. uh, Phantom and the Beatles, the book. And yeah, it's interesting to see which songs are connecting with younger generations. Yeah, I agree, James. Yeah, Egypt Station goes on too long. And yeah, Susan, he needs a producer that, has the guts to tell him to, he needs to cut some of the songs. Yeah. Yeah, I kind of like the play out version of No More Lonely Nights. I know it's kind of silly, but it's still um I did an article years ago for Beatle Fan on Paul's dance mixes, and talked about that song. Um and yeah, I mean, and he does show off his slap bass technique there, and yeah, I mean, he could do it. Let's see. Yeah, wow. Red Rose Speedway, Mind Games, Living in the Material World. We'll be doing an episode on that soon, by the way, the 50th anniversary. Um, Ringo and Band on the Run turned 50 this year. Wow. That's amazing. I didn't like that one song, Auto Tune. I can't think of the title. It's horrific. It came out around the time of Egypt Station. Oh yeah, it was a bonus track. I'm blanking out on the title too, but yeah, that I didn't like that either. Because there was another bonus track that came out that was good. Um, oh shoot, trying to. It was produced by Ryan Tedder, and yes, Get Enough. That was the bad one. Yeah, Get Enough was the one with auto tune. I could get enough of it. Yeah, that one. I didn't like that either. The other one that was good, I think, was Nothing for Free. I think that was good. But yeah, Get Enough was not. And also I will say that the concert last year, yeah, Nothing for Free is the other one. Yeah, that I liked. Um, but yeah, the I couldn't believe when at the concert last year, much as I enjoyed it, I thought, really, he had to do "For You" of all the songs, and none from McCartney 3, and he had, but "For You" made the cut. Okay. Oh man. Oh, let's see. I've had enough. Yeah, "Comfort of Love" was good. I agree with that. Should Paul remix his back catalog like the Lennon State has? Well, I guess he's done that with the McCartney archives. Um, so in a way, he has. Let's see. Yeah, David, absolutely. He has a lot of great B sides. In fact, I'm going to be writing an article for the next Beatle fan because we're doing a retrospective on Off the Ground. And there's a great example, in my opinion, of how B sides can be better than the album. Because I remember, picking up at the time, finding that Off the Ground, the complete works, and it had all the B sides on it. And I remember thinking, why didn't you put those on the album? I mean, because there's some, of course, some good songs on that. I like Hope of Deliverance, but I mean, there were some great B sides on there. I'm like, why didn't these make the cut? Yeah. Yes, Ricardo. Yeah, Ryan Tedder um, did some songs with Paul. Absolutely. She loves you to come together. This is why we're fans. Absolutely. Yeah. Yes, he did. You replace women and wives with Let 'Em In. I did. I caught some of the sound check at the Orlando show. We were standing outside the stadium and we could hear some of it. And he did Women and Wives in the sound check, so I could hear some of it. Oh yeah, Frank Sinatra's Party. Yeah, that is kind of a cool track, Susan. I agree. Yeah, Mark, I've never been able to get that much into Off the Ground, but then when I found that, um, complete works, I mean, yeah, the B sides are actually a lot better. The album, if they had put in a lot of the B sides, it would have been a better album, in my opinion. Oh, okay. Yeah, right. The remasters, not remixes. You're right, James. Only took War at a remix, and that was done for technical reasons. Okay. So yeah, he could do remixes, although I don't know if I want to rebuy all the albums again. I know Tom would. Um, I like Biker Like an Icon enough, but that making the cut for the album over Big Boys bickering is wild. I completely agree. Absolutely. Yeah, I agree, Andy. Yeah, Linda's vocals on Wings are essential to the sound. I completely agree with that. The last episode of Talk More Talk we did about Red Rose Speedway, we talked about that, and listening to it again, I could really hear that. I have new appreciation for that. I could really hear her vocals on that album, and I agree. Her voice really, I really associate her with Wings. I mean, of course I did before, but I mean her voice I associate even more now with Wings. I mean, she really was an integral part of it. Her vocals. Oh wow! So uh, world's number one EP3. You got to hear Ram On. Very cool. That is very cool. Oh, Ricardo, I didn't know you were in Austria. Very cool. So there were no. Oh, so wow, there were no Paul top 10 hits here in Austria in the 70s besides Mull of Kintyre. It was very popular here in the 80s and 90s. This one was number 8. Wow. And Hope of Deliverance number 4 in the charts. Wow. That is fascinating. Yeah, this one was released as a single here in America, but it did not do that well. And Hope of Deliverance it was also released as a single, but it did not get to number 4. I'm trying to remember what if it got in the top 20. I don't remember. That's fascinating. And here in America, he did very well in the 70s. But Mull of Kintyre was never released here in the U.S. For some reason. The record company here did not think Mull of Kintyre would do well in the U.S., so it was never released here as a single. He's never played it in concert here. It's ridiculous. I love Mull of Kintyre, but I mean, I guess I could see why it was thought it wouldn't do well, but still. So fascinating. Yep. Let's see. Yeah, I agree, Mark. Yeah, her Linda's vocals on "Get on the Right Thing" are great, and I love "Get on the Right Thing." That's one of my favorite songs off that album. Yes, indeed. Yes, I agree, Susan. Yes, he should finish the archives final remixes. I haven't got the money or the room. Like, right on. What is my favorite lineup of Wings? Boy, that's a tough call. Um, oh, that's a tough call because I do like the Red Rose Speedway, because they were really coming together as a band. However, I do like the Wings Over America lineup because I remember when I was really starting to get into Paul as a solo artist, and I watched Rock Show over and over and over again. And I was so jealous of people who got to see that tour. I thought that lineup was just flawless with Jimmy McCullough. I mean, what a guitarist he was. I just thought that was a really really good lineup. And as I said, I wish I had seen that tour. So that might be my favorite. But boy, that's a tough call because back to the Egg lineup. I mean, Steve Holley, um, Lawrence Juber, they were great too. So it's a tough call. They might. I mean, but I love Denny Sywell. I mean, what an incredible drummer he was. Um, and Henry McCullough. I mean, you know, it's hard, but I guess I would say the Wings Over America, like that period. That was what a band. Let's see. Wow, so Imagine wasn't released in the UK till '75. Interesting. Oh, as a single. Okay. I don't think I thought Malkintyre was not released in the US. Yeah, I thought it wasn't. Hmm, interesting. Yes, I thought that was the whole thing, and then and I was just talking to somebody about this recently about the All the Best collection that wasn't put on that because America wouldn't be interested in it. So that's interesting. I could have sworn it wasn't released here, but maybe not. It didn't do anything if it was released. Hmm. Yeah, this one, number 94 in Hope of Deliverance, 84. God, I didn't know it ranked that low. Wow, wow. Yeah, yeah, I didn't think Rock Show was available anymore. That was so good. That is, yeah, that's a shame. That was such a good film. Yeah, yes. Rock Show and Live in New York City. Those both need to be reissued for sure. Indy, are you asking me if I like Yesterday or Hey Jude better? Um, uh, I guess Yesterday by a very slight margin. Although there is a little fatigue factor, but still, I guess by a very, very slight margin. Wow, so interesting. I thought it was never released here. I'll be damned. Okay. So it reached number 45 on the Billboard Adult Contemporary chart. But yeah, it didn't chart on the Hot 100. Huh. Well, you learn something new every day. So Uncle Albert wasn't released as a single in the UK, but Backseat of My Car, which only got to 39. Hmm. Interesting. Okay. So Mull was on Wings Greatest. Okay. Yeah, I don't have Wings Greatest. I don't think I have that one. Yeah, because I remember getting all the best on cassette, and of course I have Wingspan. I don't think is it on Wingspan. I'm trying to remember. Sorry, I'm just catching up on comments here. Great conversation. Probably be on about 10 more minutes, and then I'll close this out. Oh, interesting. So they did they did an audio mix of 2013 version of Rock Show. Yeah, they need to re-release that. Okay, Narc. Least favorite solo Beatles album. Well, if we're not counting uh the John Lennon like wedding album and two versions, we'll put those aside. Um Gosh, least favorite. Or maybe electronic sound. We'll put those in another category. Um let's see. Well, Driving Rain would definitely be up there. That because I think that may be, well, I was going to say that may be the only album that I listened to like originally like one time and put it away. um so I'm trying to think if there are other ones like that I heard that I like. I didn't find one song. So I think that was the only album where uh, I didn't find one song that I liked. Because even some of, other albums, even some of Ringo's, like Ringo the Fourth or something, which everybody piles on. Um, even like trying to remember, there was one song on there that I did kind of like. Um, Drowning in the Sea of Love, I think. I think that was the one. Um, like I like that one, but I mean, I think maybe Driving Rain because, as I said, I think um, I when I heard that there wasn't one song on there that I connected to, so I think that may be the worst. Oh, Ringo's Christmas album. Oh, bah humbug. I like that album. Do I think Sergeant Pepper and Magical Mystery Tour would have made a great double album? It's an interesting question. I don't know. I think it might have been too kind of overkill. I guess I'm just so used to Sergeant Pepper being the way it is. I mean, it's just such a great concept album. I think it could have been too long. Um, I know I sound like I have a short attention span where I keep talking about Paul's albums or songs being too long, but nah, I think it's perfect the way it is. Besides all things, what is the George album you go back to the most? Oh gosh. Probably 33 and a third. That's my favorite. I love that album. It's kind of close between, excuse me, 33 and a Third or George Harrison. I love both those albums. Those are kind of his most R&B albums, as we were talking about earlier. Um, I do love Cloud Nine, but I don't really find myself going back to it as much as those albums. But probably by a slight margin, 33 and a Third. But All Things was past number one, not surprisingly. Yeah, I agree, Mark. Those are kind of two separate albums for me. Magical Mystery Tour and Yellow Submarine is a double album. That's an interesting idea. Yeah, Gone Troppo, Farrell. I used to hate that album. I mean, that, if you had asked me like 20 years ago or so, well, prior to Driving Rain, I probably would have said Gone Troppo is my least favorite. But yeah, it's kind of grown on me over the years. I think it's, over the years, I think it's kind of gone up in stature. I think it's, it was, I mean, it was so panned when it first came out, right? I mean, it was just absolutely trash. But there are some interesting songs on there. I think, you know, it's gone. I think it's gone up in stature. Oh, really? So you thought Beatles novice as a kid in the early '80s? Oh, sounds like you're my age. Actually, thought Sgt. Pepper Magical Mystery Tour was a double album. Well, I can kind of see why. I mean, it was, in the same period, kind of. Now that's really interesting, Mark, that you said you like the mixes on Live in Japan. I actually don't. I wish that could be remixed, because I do love. I mean, I love the album. I mean, that's of course the closest many of us, who weren't, well, I was going to say who weren't fortunate enough to see him in 74, although, the Dark Horse tour. Um, Although Ken Michaels got to see him on that tour, and he said it wasn't as bad as people made it out to be. But um, I've never liked. I always thought the mixes sounded a little flat to me. But um, although that's what George wanted, he turned out. He wanted. I mean, he didn't say make them sound as flat as possible, um, but I do. I mean, I'm glad we have it, because so many of those songs. I mean, to have them, live. But um, let's see. Let's see. Why didn't George tour the U.S. in '91? I'm trying to remember. I read somewhere. Um, I think after that whole experience, in '74, I think he really soured on touring. I think he, just really had a bad experience with it. I think he just did that. What was it? 2 weeks in Japan, I believe, and that was just it for him. He just didn't want to, tour. Remember, uh, with the Beatles, I mean, he did not. I don't think he. Maybe he thought it was okay in the beginning, but he did not want to tour after that. I mean, he, was fine with um, quitting touring after that. And, Paul, toward the end, the Beatles, I mean, he wanted to get back to some live performances, but George was not really on board with that. So I think, he was not a road warrior like Paul, for sure. Let's see. Do I still enjoy tracks like Love Me Do and From Me to You? Um, Love Me Do, I'm a little burned out on, I have to admit. From Me to You, I still like. Um, and I actually don't like people, I don't know if they think I listen to the Beatles all the time. I really don't. And like, I listen to the Beatles channel periodically. But I don't listen to it all the time. I like all different stuff. So, they're kind of in rotation. Let's put it that way. I don't listen to stuff, Beatles stuff all the time. Yeah, any tour with Ravi Shankar's family and with Tom Scott's band can't be all bad. That's very true, Mark. Yeah, I agree, James. I mean, I'm a big fan of Rick Rubin as a producer. Um, I always thought he and Paul should work together. But yeah, that documentary was a little disappointing. Um, and I thought Rick Rubin, I don't know, I thought he would have done his homework a little more about. Well, my neighbor's doing some lawn mowing. I hope this won't be too noisy. Um, but yeah, I mean, there was a little bit of fawning going on. So yeah, I'd hope that, and some of the stuff. I mean, Paul did pull out some of his old chestnuts and stories, and I kind of hoped it would be a little deeper than that. Um, okay, let me see here. Oh, really, Susan? So yeah, you thought it was pretty bad. That's a shame. Right? Yeah, David. Yeah, that one gig at the Albert Hall. Yeah, he wasn't maybe as charismatic a performer, although that the concert at the Bangladesh shows. I mean, I thought those were pretty amazing. Sorry, bees around me again. Um, Strange that John Paul and George's sons never married and or had children. Um, yeah, interesting. Oh, good. You can't hear the lawnmower man. Excellent. The Beatles ever do "Don't Bother Me" live? Not that I'm aware of, unless I'm mistaken. I don't recall. I can't recall offhand. I don't think. Yeah, not that I remember. Certainly not for the BBC. Yeah, I don't remember that ever being part of their set list. Hmm. Yeah, I don't think so. So yeah, it would have been interesting to hear live. Yeah, that would have been good. Let's see. Did George start playing slide guitar after the Delaney and Bonnie tour? I don't recall him playing slide on any Beatles songs. My Sweet Lord, Where All Things Must Pass may have been the first recorded slide by George. Um, Trying to think if he played any slide. Yeah, I think you're right. Yeah, I agree, Mark. Yeah, I think he did start playing slide on that Delaney and Bonnie tour. Yeah, as I can't think either of him playing any slide on Beatles songs. Yep, I think you're right. Yeah, that Delaney Bramlett showed him how that slide technique. Yes, and he sure was a fast learner, wasn't he? Boy, that became his trademark. So, yep, I think you're right. Yes, you read my mind, David. I was just thinking about that. Yeah, that I hope we'll be hearing it in the near future. That recently discovered Beatles Stowe School live concert. So, Rocky, oh, good to see you. Hope to see you around Blue Village Vinyl soon. Yes, now that I'm recovered. Absolutely. Good to see you. Do I think George complained too much about his lot in life? Well, I mean, he had some legitimate complaints, of course. you could tell that during the anthology, he definitely had some bitterness. I mean, for sure. Um, and I mean, as I said, he had some legitimate gripes. I mean, particularly toward the end of the Beatles. I mean, he had gotten to be um, a first class songwriter, and Paul and John were still reluctant to give him, equal billing. And I think that, uh, and he deserved it by that time. So I think that, he certainly did. I mean, well, we know from that recording that surfaced when they had the meeting that, Paul was kind of sniping about giving George more songs. I mean, John was open to it. So, I mean, he had some legitimate complaints for sure. I mean, he was, I think still thought of as the youngest. And not given the respect that he deserved toward the end. So I think he had some legitimate complaints. Let's see. Do I like Sean's solo work? Um, Admittedly, it's just not my taste. Although I do like that he collaborated with oh God, what's his name from Primus? Les Claypool. Um, because I do like Les Claypool. I like some of Primus's stuff. It's weird, but what a bass player he is! Wow. Hey, Jackson. Yes, that's my neighbor. I'm safe. Yeah, I wish Friar Park was open too. Mind games or walls and bridges? I like walls and bridges. I'm a big fan of walls and bridges. Thanks, Susan, for coming. I appreciate it. Good to see you. Oh no, I have not seen the AI of John singing yesterday. Ugh, I'm just not a big fan of these AI things. I talked about that earlier. Honestly, feel that's the best Beatles. So the for shooting too late for goodbyes are the best. Yeah, I've always liked Julian's stuff the best, to be honest with you. Us, George was a multimillionaire, and he sounds silly complaining, but to George, he's arguing with his mates. Mates had looked down on him since childhood. That was a big deal to him. Yeah, I mean, I think, yes, he certainly, had money and all that, but I think that um, he, he had a point, though, about not getting the respect he deserved all the time. Let's see. So this AI thing sounds like a late Lennon 70s demo. Oh, Lennon late, excuse me, 70s demo, but singing yesterday. Ugh, I'm just not a huge fan. That is, yeah. Yeah, the Claypool Lennon Delirium albums. Yeah, that would probably be, that's probably more my speed with Sean's stuff. I didn't like his earlier stuff. Like, I think there was one album he did, what was it called? Into the Sun, something like that. And it just wasn't my cup of tea. I mean, I respect him. I mean, he seems to have a good head on his shoulders. He's very intelligent, but, just wasn't my thing. So, you know, so. All right. Well, my goodness, I was on a lot longer than I expected, but this was such good conversation. I didn't want to stop. So this has been fun. As I said, this isn't an official Chaos and Creation in Kit's Backyard, but I will be starting them for real next month. But this is such a beautiful day today, I couldn't resist. Um, it was, I had to do it. Um, oh, okay, one more here. What was my favorite John period? Um, oh, was his best. Oh, so in terms of looks, um, even though he claimed this was his heavy period, um, I thought for all of them the Help era, I thought they all looked great. They were, their clothes, the look. I like that. Anyway, so well, thanks, Debbie. Thank you, everybody, for joining me, and thank you, James. Really enjoyed being with you, but I'll give more notice next time for when I'll be on. But hope to see you at the future record clubs. And don't forget to join in Steve Schnee's Holy Trinity Challenge. I know he'll really enjoy it if you do. You can do it on you can do a video, you can post on his Facebook page, but he'll really get a kick out of it if you join in. So until next time, everybody, peace and love, peace and love. See you soon. Bye bye.